I want you to cast your minds back to the end of the 2017 Doctor Who episode Extremis, part 1 of the Monk trilogy. Bill has just found herself in a strange white void, and she's watched Nardole break up into pixels and apparently disappear into thin air. He's completely gone. She then finds the Doctor and asks him for some answers, saying, "I need to know what's real and what isn't real." The Doctor replies, "Don't we all?" This is a central idea in the episode: what's real and what isn't, what's true and what's a lie, what's a deception. And in this video, I'm going to be taking a closer look back at the episode, looking at specific scenes and elements, and just looking at the ways in which it articulates these ideas. Ideas that are very much associated with the theory to do with postmodernism. I'm going to be referring specifically to the work of Jean Baudrillard, a French philosopher and theorist from the 20th century, who published a seminal work entitled Simulacra and Simulation, which is very relevant to this episode of Doctor Who. So first of all, these postmodern ideas that I speak of, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it is interesting stuff actually, so I'd recommend you look it up. There are some interesting summaries of Baudrillard's work and of these ideas, which I'll link to in the description below. Essentially, postmodern society is fragmented. There's no grand master narrative like religion or science or anything like that that's come before in the centuries previous. Everything is subjective, everything is questioned, even reality itself. And that's where we find ourselves in Baudrillard's work, Simulacra and Simulation. He suggests that the whole of human experience is a simulation of reality. It's not the real thing. In fact, there is no reality. Reality has no meaning anymore. Before I go any further, I just want to clarify what I'm talking about when I mention simulacra and simulation, because in a 21st century context, you might think, oh hey, it's a computer simulation, like in the episode itself, indeed, here in Extremis. That's not quite what Baudrillard is saying. Essentially, the definition of a simulacra in his work is just an imitation or representation of someone or something. He argues that these simulacra have replaced the thing that they were based on. Essentially, the real has been lost. It doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced by what he describes as the hyperreal. Furthermore, the simulation is now indistinguishable from the real, the imitation indistinguishable from the thing that it's based on. He says that simulation threatens the difference between true and false, between real and imaginary. So what makes the real real? And can a simulation be real? What makes the true true? Can the true be false? Can the false be true? These are questions posed by Baudrillard and by his work, and as I hope you're starting to see, they're also very relevant to this episode of Doctor Who, to Extremis. This is an episode that challenges all our perceptions about what makes the real real, about what's real in the first place. It's constantly playing with our expectations, misleading us, making us think one thing, and then pulling one big twist and saying, actually no, it's something else. To start with, I'm going to look at how this is achieved through the scenes set at Missy's execution. Now, the episode starts off with one of these scenes, with a flashback, and this is unconventional even for a Doctor Who episode. It's not the episode we thought we were getting. We were promised a contemporary thriller with monks, the Pope, the Veritas, part 1 of a 3-part trilogy. That's not quite what this is. Immediately there is a disparity between our expectations and reality, between what we expect to see and what we actually get. We're told that a Time Lord is about to be executed, and naturally because we see the Doctor first, we assume that he is that Time Lord. When Missy then appears, that complicates things, because Missy is supposedly evil and the Doctor good. Is Missy the executioner and the Doctor the prisoner, or is it the other way around? It's deliberately ambiguous, and the truth only becomes clear when the prisoner is asked to kneel, and then Missy kneels. So yes, we've been misled. Missy is being executed by the Doctor, not the other way round as was suggested, and the viewer feels foolish for ever thinking that that was an option, but Moffat is playing with our expectations here, constantly trying to subvert them, trying to deliver something a bit different to what we're expecting. Finally, we then cut to the present day, to the vaults, and the Doctor is talking to Missy through the vault door. So we think we know what's going on now. Missy's in the vault, and this scene here is a little prequel showing how she got there. Except, again, it's not quite as simple as that. There are still questions left unanswered by the time the opening credits roll. How did Missy get there, and how did she escape her execution? There are further examples of deception later on in the later execution scenes. For example, when a priest appears wearing a hood, only for it to turn out to be Nardole in disguise. And then Missy, a character who is supposedly bad, supposedly evil, promises to turn good, pleading with the Doctor. Is it possible that she could turn a new leaf? Or is this in itself another deception? Again, it's ambiguous, deliberately. We're not quite sure what's going on and whether Missy's being genuine here or not. Then we see Missy actually die. She's dead. Or is she? We've seen the Doctor talk to her in the present day, yet we still haven't seen inside the vault yet. So is this in itself another deception? Is Missy really in that vault after all? It's only at the very end of the episode that we get some form of resolution for this particular plot strand, when Missy turns out to be alive after all. Her death was fake, it was an illusion, a simulation if you will, it wasn't real, it wasn't true. And that illusion is maintained by having Missy in the vault, supposedly dead, but in fact alive. The Doctor swore an oath to look after her body for 1,000 years, but he says nobody mentioned her being dead. It's a white lie. The Doctor can stay true to his oath, whilst at the same time maintaining this lie. The boundaries between what is real and what is fake, what is true and what is a lie, are blurred. Of course, the most obvious example of simulacra and simulation being explored in Extremis is the computer simulation created by the monks. The whole of the episode is set in this simulated world, bar the very first and very last scenes, plus the Missy execution flashback scenes as well. And the email received by the Doctor at the start of the episode marks the shift from the real world into this simulated world. A shift masked by the opening titles. They're there like a security, a comfort, as if to say, there's nothing to see here, move along, this is same old, just like any other Doctor episode, when in fact, we find ourselves in a different world after the opening titles to the one that we were in before. Everything we see after the titles takes place in the simulation. Now, of course, the viewer doesn't know this at the time on first watch, but nevertheless, the signs are there, the computer glitches as we move into the titles and out of them again. A warning to the unwitting viewer. Beware, what you're about to see isn't really real. This is a simulation. The ambiguity between what is real and what is not is reflected in the Doctor's blindness. His vision is clouded, he cannot tell what is true and what is a lie, and he's completely oblivious to the fact that he is in fact a simulant living inside a simulation. This also works as a symbol for the viewer watching the episode. Like the Doctor, we're oblivious to the fact that what we're watching isn't true, isn't real, it's a simulation. The Doctor's blindness puts him at a disadvantage. Without his sight, he can't see the world around him as it truly is. For example, he's tricked into thinking that one of the monks is Cardinal Angelo. It's only once he's restored his sight and cleared his vision that he's able to see the full truth. A metaphor for how a simulacra masks the real and overrules it. There's also another layer of deception going on here. The Doctor is lying about his blindness to Bill, keeping it a secret from her, deceiving her, in the same way that the monks deceived their simulants into thinking that they're real human beings. He allows her to believe a lie in favour of the truth, perhaps because he himself doesn't want to face up to the fact that he's blind. As Nardole says, the moment you tell Bill, it becomes real, and then you might actually have to deal with it. So in this world of lies, what is truth? What can we be sure about? The episode presents us with a number of different options, each one represented by one of the monks' projected worlds. The core establishments of religion, politics and science are all seen in the episode. The Catholic faith in terms of religion, CERN and the Pentagon representing science, and politics in the form of the White House and the US President at the end of the story. The monks' hub, where each of these worlds is projected from, where they're all collected together into one circle, is a microcosm for our own society. It reflects the idea that these institutions, these systems of faith and belief, are all simulations in our own society too. They're abstract constructs with little bearing in reality that we choose whether or not to believe in without being fully sure. In the context of the episode, they're all invalidated by the veritas, the one true truth, truth in the heart of heresy as put by the Doctor. In this world of lies, learning the truth comes at the cost of death, and more than that, of suicide. The Veritas challenges these systems of faith and belief. Even those that subscribe to them are driven to commit suicide. The Doctor poses the question, particle physicists and priests, what could scare them both? And the answer is the Veritas. The only thing the people living in this world can be sure of is the fact that they are simulants living inside a simulation. They cannot go on living knowing that they are not real, and the only way to escape is through death. As Baudrillard states, the simulation has overruled the real, it's become more dominant. The simulants have become so sophisticated, so accurate, that they believe they're the real thing. They believe they're real humans, and they've been deceived into thinking that the world they know is the true one, when in fact it is a complete sham. But this is the flaw in the monks' plan. Their simulation is too accurate, too real. They create a doctor who, like the real Doctor, is blind, who owns a pair of sonic shades psychically wired into his brain, capable of sending the real Doctor an email recording. Baudrillard is wary of the Simulacra, describing it as a threat and seeing it as inferior to the original, by virtue of it being an imitation of the original. But this poses another interesting question. Is the simulation automatically inferior to the thing it's based on? The Doctor's word on the matter is, you don't have to be real to be the Doctor, long as you never give up, long as you always trick the bad guys into their own traps. It's the essence of the Doctor that matters, not whether or not he's real or imaginary. The real Doctor benefits from the simulated Doctor's email recording, and so there's that two-way relationship between the two. This also alludes to Moffat's own ideas about what the Doctor is, his own vision of the Doctor as an idea, not a thing or a person, but an abstract thing, the essence of the Doctor. To summarise, there are clear parallels to be drawn between Extremis and postmodern concerns about reality, truth, and authenticity, particularly Baudrillard's theories about simulacra and simulation. The episode asks questions about us and our society. Notably, have we become desensitised to the presence of simulacra and imitation? Can we tell the difference between what is real and what is simulated? And perhaps most importantly, are we living in a simulation? If we were, how would we know? Would we even be able to tell in the first place? Or like the inhabitants of the monks' world, would we be completely oblivious, unwitting participants, unknowingly implicit in a grander, greater scheme? Like Bill, we wish to know what's real and what isn't. Unfortunately for us, however, we've got no way of knowing for sure. In short, as the Doctor says to Cardinal Angelo, assume nothing. Assumption makes an ass out of you. And umption. What do you think about Extremis and the ideas it explores? Do let me know in the comments section below. I really hope you've enjoyed this Doctor Who video essay. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and do follow me on Twitter for all the latest updates too. And stay tuned for the next episode of this series, in which I'll be taking a closer look at the pyramid at the end of the world. But until then, goodbye.